Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, with the tawfiq, hidayah and biiznillah, we continue our da'wah work to train 12,000 PIP life coaches through our video, and we are talking about motivation, coaching, counseling, mentoring and all the other aspects so that we can train you to become an Islamic life coach to help the community, and how we can transform the ummah in the 21st century to be a leading ummah for humanity and for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of ourselves, family, ummah and so on. So I've given you this idea of this kalam cosmological argument. That means from the perspective of ilmu tawhid, kalam cosmology, we have our YouTube, is ilmu tawhid, kalam cosmology. All this video relating to ilmu tawhid and kalam cosmology I have given you, and we are discussing about the first sifah that is the wujud or the existence of Allah, and I've given you many ideas about how Ghazali's understanding of kalam and how to explain in terms of the minor premise, the major premise, and how we understand that Allah is beyond the unending chain and Allah is not the adar, the concept of this which I have given to you. And what is important, that this universe needs a designer, and we have given you the understanding of the scientific proof of existence of Allah, beginning of the Big Bang. Allah is the creator of the fine-tuned universe, and Allah also is a fine-tuning universe to allow life, which I will talk later, and fine-tuning of the formation of carbon. So without carbon there will be no life. So we have to understand how the formation of carbon allow living matter to exist, and why this is very important in terms of the formation of this universe. That means the cosmological argument must bring about the rational approach. So I have just read from our book, Positive Islamic Psychology. You can go to our chapter on understanding the creator and the created universe. Alright, so it says here, life would be impossible without carbon, yet because the process is precise, the requirement for the existence of carbon atom should be very scarce. The formation of a carbon atom requires a rare triple collision known as triple alpha process. Alright, so this is the triple alpha process in terms of the explosion of the stars. So it is very long there. Alright, so what is needed is so precise, the fine-tuning, that at the exact moment of two helium atoms resonate in union, the beryllium atom appears in 0.000000000. That is about 15 zeros second needed to produce one atom. Okay, so that is how the fine-tuning of how we have this atom from the galaxies, from the nuclei, from the quasars. And Sir Frank Hoyle says, if you want to produce carbon and oxygen in rough equal quantity by stellar nucleosynthesis, these are the two levels you have to fix, and fixing it will just be about the level where it's actually to be found in terms of the number, which is infinite, almost infinite, like 1/10 to the power of maybe a few hundred. Okay, so it is very, very, very difficult to actually just produce carbon, and yet we have carbon, and from carbon we have life, because all living matter, whether it is the plant, the trees, ourselves, the main component of our existence is carbon. If just for example you burn somebody, left ashes, there's a carbon ash of that person who exists. So what is important is that basically if we understand this fine-tuning in terms of the formation of carbon to allow life, and not only to allow life in this universe, to allow life on this earth. This earth must be fine-tuned in terms of position within the Milky Way and within the planetary system and within the universe and within everything, within even having a moon and so on. If not, we cannot exist. So from the formation of carbon, we have the formation or the very beginning of the existence of living matter, which we'll go into the next video. So inshallah, if you can understand this, you understand the impossibility of the existence of this universe without the creator, the impossibility of the existence of carbon without God, who created everything and put everything into being in a fine-tuned manner, inshallah.
And in the footnote we read, When we launch astronauts into space, we measure precisely the amount of food, water, oxygen, and other needs throughout the journey. Similarly, God has launched us into space on board Spaceship Earth, and He has designed all kinds of renewable provisions for us and other creatures, a perfect design. Think, for example, of the symbiotic relationship between us and the plants. We use the oxygen they produce in photosynthesis, while they use the carbon dioxide we produce in respiration. This is per God's design, this perfect symbiotic relationship, and perfectly calibrated and designed in exact measure for us to be able to sustain and thrive in life. Have you ever looked up in the moon and you realize that the moon, relative to other planets in our solar system, is a rather large moon for the size of the Earth? It just happens that it's about 1/4 the size of Earth. And because of its size and its location, it causes the Earth to have a tilt of about 23.5 degrees, allowing us to have 4 seasons, allowing us to have climate control on planet Earth. The Earth is covered with 71% water, which is an abundant amount of water, and it's perfect for calibrating the temperature because water has a very high heat specificity, means it requires a lot of energy to increase or decrease the temperature of water just by 1 degree. And this is perfectly suited for life, which requires relative balance of temperature in order to thrive. And the fact that the Earth is the exact distance from the sun to allow for liquid water, and that these proportions end up working out perfectly in a way that you can't even imagine. So Earth is the only planet in the entire solar system that is able to witness a perfect solar eclipse. And it just happens to be on the one planet that has the intelligent life to be able to appreciate and benefit from a perfect solar eclipse. Each year, the moon moves away from the Earth roughly about 1 inch, meaning that if this life, the life that we know today, existed 1,000,000 years before, 1,000,000 years later, we would not be able to benefit from this perfect solar eclipse. And it just happens that the timing, the proportions are all perfect, that the moon is roughly 400 times smaller than the sun and 400 times closer to the Earth than the sun, such that at the right timing, the moon is going to perfectly block out the sun, leaving nothing but the chromosphere. Now, while this is an absolutely breathtaking event, there's something else that is very revolutionary. Because of a perfect solar eclipse, imagine this being the largest experiment that God has placed us in the universe to be able to observe. We were able to confirm Einstein's theory of general relativity. In 1919, a researcher went out in the solar eclipse and located the position of 2 stars that naturally would not be able to be observed if the sun's rays weren't being blocked by the moon. And then a year later, he went back to that same location and saw that the gravity of the sun bent the light of those 2 stars. And from that, we're able to confirm that the Einstein's theory of general relativity. In addition, because the moon perfectly blocks out the sun, leaving nothing but the chromosphere, we can use spectroscopy to determine what is a sun, or better yet, a star made of. And from that, we're able to determine that stars are made of hydrogen and helium, looking at the light spectroscopy. Then what we ended up were able to do because of this is we were able to go and look at these stars that are millions of light years away and be able to tell, based on the shift of the light spectrum, that they were shifting towards the red spectrum, meaning that they were moving at tremendous speeds away from Earth. And if you extrapolate all these calculations backwards, what you end up getting is you realize that the stars and galaxies that are further away are also traveling at faster speeds than the ones that are closer to us. And all of this is simultaneously expanding. And if you extrapolate this backwards, what this proves is the Big Bang. That all this used to be one solid mass that God exploded into existence. And all this because we were able to witness a perfect solar eclipse. Even the makeup of the atmosphere is perfectly designed such that we are able to see the atmosphere. We're able to see beyond the atmosphere and stare at the stars and the galaxies. What if the atmosphere contained more nitrogen? What if we were in a place in the galaxy, in the Milky Way galaxy, closer to the center rather than towards the edge, the perimeter, where we would be hard to differentiate between the stars in our galaxies and the ones that are outside of our galaxy? And these are all random events that someone who doesn't believe in God has to attribute to pure chance. But we know as believing, submitting individuals, these are just blessings that allow us to be appreciative and marvel at the awesomeness of God. All this is perfectly designed. In 36:37 it reads, "Another sign for them is the night. We remove the daylight therefrom, whereupon they are in darkness. The sun sets into a specific location according to the design of the Almighty, the Omniscient. The moon we design to appear in stages until it becomes like an old curved sheath. The sun is never to catch up with the moon, and the night and the day never deviate. Each of them is floating in its own orbit." So this is perfectly designed by God. And even the sun and the moon, just like Jupiter, serve as celestial bodyguards for the planet Earth. The sun in all its mass probably deflects so many asteroids and comets that could be heading towards Earth and pull it into its gravitational orbit. And if you look at the moon, because it has no atmosphere and all the craters that it has, any single one of those could have hit Earth and could have caused real havoc and damage. And all these are just, blessing upon blessing upon blessing for us. The fact that the core of the earth is made of molten iron. And God says in the chapter 57 that he sent down the iron wherein there is strength. And this iron core of the earth creates a magnetic field that protects the earth from harmful rays, to protect the life on earth from being hit by these rays. And it takes this cosmic debris, and it sends it to the two most remote locations on planet Earth where life barely resides, and that's in the North and South Pole. In the atmosphere, it blocks out a lot of the harmful rays, the UV rays, the X-rays that can be detrimental to carbon-based life. And it allows in the light, the visible light spectrum that is necessary for photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is what allows us to have food, to have vegetation, to have life. And if any of these weren't there, none of this